Welcome back to another episode of the Blacklist Podcast. Today, we are thrilled to have Todd Rennebohm, a remarkable advocate, author, and podcaster. Todd's journey began in 2015 when he entered a 28-day addiction treatment center, sparking a profound commitment to the mental health advocacy. Since then, Todd has been a formidable force in the field, organizing rallies, influencing government policy to establish a dedicated minister of mental health and addictions, and authoring the highly acclaimed children's book, Sometimes Daddy Cries. His efforts have led him to make numerous appearances on TV, radio, and podcasts, and he's been a featured speaker at countless events, schools, and treatment centers, even taking his advocacy to the provincial legislature. In addition to his advocacy, Todd hosts his own podcast, Bunny Hugs and Mental Health, which has aired over 100 episodes and stands as one of Canada's top mental health podcasts. Join us as we dive deep into Todd's inspiring story, exploring the impact of his work and personal experiences that drive his commitment to improving mental health awareness and support. This episode, along with a host of other inspiring stories, can be found at theblacklistpodcast.com. Without further delay, Todd Rennebohm. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, Todd Rennebohm.
Well done. Nailed the name.
Thank you. I nailed the name. I may have fucked up the intro a little bit, but I nailed the name.
Man, you maybe sound better than I actually think I am.
You know, and it's funny, bro. I'll tell you this, like, everybody's like, man, I wish I would have wrote that. And I'm like, listen, bro, it's Chat GPT. I'll tell you that. I got no problem telling people, telling the listeners that. If you don't know, go check out Chat GPT. This isn't a sponsorship opportunity either.
Yet.
Well, I appreciate you coming on, man. Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for having me. I'm sorry that the other folks can't make it. I hope they're okay and well, and I know lives are very filled with things, so I hope those things are,
Well, it's kind of crazy too when you got there's three of us that co-host the show, and of course Brianna, that's my girlfriend. We live together, so there's times where she's not feeling good or she's at work, but then we have Swag from Detroit. So when you got three people, and they're kind of on three different levels in life at times, it's kind of hard. I wouldn't say it's rare to get everybody in on one episode together, but it's hard. So a lot of times it's either me and Brianna or me and Swag or just me, so it's a little hard.
Yeah. I actually started doing a second episode a week with a co-host too. And it's, even just to get him and I together, it's like, we'll record 2 or 3 episodes in a row just so that because it's hard to get together once a week. So we get together like 2 or 3 weeks. I can imagine 3.
Yeah. Yeah. We've done that before where we've recorded like 3 or 4 episodes in a day just to like knock it out, just to kind of get our bank up. But I don't do that unless I absolutely have to do it.
Right. Yeah. It's it's a lot of work. People don't realize just how much work this is, but
it's
also a lot of fun.
Yeah, like we were talking before we started recording, like people don't understand the amount of work that it goes into it. And like, when you're recording, for us, for instance, like I mentioned before, like 4 episodes a week, and then we do the live and then it's like, then work a full-time job and all the editing. And then sometimes you got to shift things around and it's crazy. So it's not just like you hit record, we're done, you upload it. Like it is a whole process that goes into it.
Right.
So it's time. It takes a lot of time.
Even when all that stuff's ready and all you're doing is posting on the different social medias, that takes like an hour and a half of like writing up all the descriptions and putting it up here and putting it onto Facebook and then putting it onto Instagram and all this crap. It's like, I'm doing is posting. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just posting.
I know.
It takes hours.
I got like, I have like a thread in my text that I have that's saved. That's like the outline pretty much. And so I have that. So I'll copy that and I'll paste it and I'll just input the blanks and whatnot. But before I used to not do that. And it would take me so long to do that. I'm like, hold on. I got to go to TikTok. I go to Instagram. I got to go to YouTube, Facebook, like everything. And then it's like, I'm telling like Brianna, like, all right, babe, hold on. Like, I'm almost done. I'm just posting the links, and it's an hour later and I'm like finishing it up.
Yeah. I always forget something every time. I'm like,
Oh, I know. And then I
God,
go
I
back and I'm
forgot to
like,
do
crap, hold on. Let me go back and edit this real quick. And then, of course, like you can certain platforms you can edit on, some you can't. So it just all
Mhm.
depends.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but, but yeah, man, no, it's cool. So you are from Canada, and
That's right,
we,
eh?
we talked about this before when we first talked on the phone. How many mental health and recovery podcasts are from Canada?
And I didn't even realize until you told me that. I was like, oh, is there?
Well, because then we had Dan, and then we had, and then Chuck, and then of course now that there's you, and then there's and then there's uh who else? I mean, I don't even. There's a shit ton of them out there.
We're
But it's
actually
like
all
every
from the
single
same
one I see.
province.
Really, how far away? How far away are you from? So pardon me
From
if I
Dan?
botch it. Saskatchewan, yeah,
Well, Saskatchewan is a
Saskatoon,
province. Yeah,
Saskatoon.
Saskatoon. It's about 3.5 hours away, but um, Dan and we actually went to high school together here in Indian Head, Saskatchewan. He moved
Okay,
away in like grade 10 or 11 or something like that, but
yeah.
and he's a few years younger. He's my sister's age, but yeah, it's
It's
a
so
small world.
it's always crazy, man. How do you like to hear how you guys like instead of like ninth grade, 10th grade, it's grade 10, grade 9, grade 8. It's crazy. Like it's funny though. I learned a lot about Canadians once I started the show and had every fucking Canadian on here.
So what part was crazy to you about the grades?
They're just backwards. For us in school, it's like, okay, first grade, second grade, third grade, and then you guys are backwards, okay, grade 9, grade 10, grade 8, grade 7. I don't know if that's how it all is, but
I don't know if I'm know what you mean. Like we started in
for
grade
school,
one.
for
Yeah.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, we started in
So
grade
like,
one. We
so
go up to grade 12.
yeah. So you guys call it grade 1. And when we call it first grade, second grade. So it's
Oh, I see what
backwards.
you're
The
saying. I
terminology
see
is
what you're saying.
backwards. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So
Oh,
it's
okay.
crazy. Like, yeah, like, so it's like I hear that, and then I'm just like, yeah,
Oh,
it's interesting.
damn. I never even realized when I was saying it. I was like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
Yeah. Oh, and listen, don't worry. I also didn't realize until I was on Dan's show that um, Thanksgiving's on a completely different month.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I was on their show and I was wrapping up, and they're like, "Okay, have a happy Turkey Day." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? It's October." Like, oh yeah, yeah. I'm like, our Thanksgiving's not till November, and so I didn't realize that you guys' Thanksgiving was in October.
Well, we're like the wish.com version of the
Yeah,
States. We're
there
very
you go.
similar, but it's like just these little
Yeah.
differences.
One day I will go. I live in New York, close
Mm,
close to the Buffalo area, so we're not that far from the Canadian border on this side. So I will
right.
eventually go. We will eventually try to attempt to go again. We tried once and it didn't work. So um
Criminal records?
not for me. But it just didn't work. We got
I
I
noticed that.
didn't, but somebody got detained and we just like, well, we can't go back there now for a while. But I
I
didn't
know.
realize like how strict they were about just going across the border. Like,
Well, yeah. Was this post 9/11?
yeah, well, yeah, this was like last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were in Niagara Falls, and literally like, oh, let's walk across to the other side of Niagara Falls. And of
You
course,
got
you got to walk.
detained.
You got to walk through the dam, to go and of course this was now they changed it up to this year, but last year it was they had to a year and a half. Yeah, it's about a year and a half. They had to have your COVID vaccine had to be uploaded on the website and all that good stuff.
Mm,
So we were waiting in line, and then of course they were just like, yeah, no, you guys can't
mm,
go across. So,
mm.
um,
Well,
so
we're
I guess
building a wall.
if you're on like probation or anything like that, I guess you can't go across.
Yeah. We're actually building a wall.
Really, like Mexico? Listen, I'm half Hispanic. My family's Hispanic, so I don't judge me. I can say say that.
But it's more like Game of Thrones, though. It's like a big ice wall.
There you go.
It melts every spring, though.
Damn, man.
Anyway.
Well, anyways, you know what, bro? I've had some guests on where we're like 30 minutes, 40 minutes in, and we're like, holy shit, we haven't even started the conversation yet. But sometimes those are like the best ones. Sometimes.
Oh, that happened to me last night, actually. Have you ever heard of Rodney Norman?
I don't think I have.
He's got like this big white beard and crazy white hair, and he's like, if you're doing the thing and you go and do the other thing. He's like a motivational speaker guy.
But he sounds like that?
Yeah, it's a character he plays.
Okay, I was going to say, is he for real?
No, he's a stand-up comedian, but he 2 years ago, he became huge because of his goofy videos he'd post. But anyway, last night we recorded for an hour, and I don't think we talked mental health. We just shot the shit, and I was like, well, this is gonna be a weird spin for that episode. I'm not sure how I'm gonna do it, but
yeah, I mean, sometimes, man, that's just sometimes that's just how it is. Like I told you before, this it's not like a strict format. Like, man, we just talk and often, and I just vibe based on the conversation, and if that means we shoot the shit for an hour, it means we shoot the shit for an hour. It means we just have to have you on again to record, your story. But it's those authentic conversations where you're not forcing anything, where those sometimes end up being some of the best performing episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Being a podcaster, you're like, oh, this is gonna be so popular, and it's like,
yeah, like Matt Keegan.
Say the name again.
Matt Keegan.
I know the name.
Okay, well, he's a recovery hip hop artist. He's been on Matt's show. Shit, he's been on Dan's show. He's been on Chuck's show. But he's become a really good friend of mine. But he, that dude, we came on and we it was like 45 minutes and we hadn't even started to get into his thing. And that right there, and that was just, we shot the shit or whatever. And then we had like Kalichi on, who's like an OG in the recovery community. Everybody knows the guy, and I'm here, I'm thinking, man, Kalichi's episode is gonna blow it out the wall. No, and Matt's episode was the number one listened episode of all of 2023. So it just goes to and Kalichi's, unfortunately, I'm not saying anything, anything bad, but his was one of the lower performing episodes. So it's crazy, when you think one's going to take it off, and then it's the one you least expected.
Yeah, it is funny. And I like some of my better popular ones are kind of more local people. And I think because they're excited, so they tell their friends and family and stuff, and so they listen, or they're known in the community or whatever. Whereas like someone like that guy probably doesn't even post it, or he just comes on, does it, and then he has another one to do tomorrow night, and so it's not a big deal
so for them it's like it's just clockwork. Okay, they're not really thinking about the promotion aspect of it like we do.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So really, to make it perform well, it's like both parties need to actually be like thoroughly in, promoting and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or too many people have heard him on other people's podcasts already sometimes too.
I get that.
Oh, this guy again.
Yeah. The same story. And I get it. It's, okay, they're on 5 or 6 podcasts, the same story, blah, 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 so, I don't know. It's a hit or miss, man. We just roll with the punches, and if it performs well, it performs well. And if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. So I've stopped trying to predict that. I just talk to people who I think would be cool to talk to.
Exactly. And like I told you, I don't care if they got 1 million followers or if they got 1 follower. Everyone's got a story. At the end of the day, everybody's got a story, and I've had people with millions of followers, and I've had people with 100 followers, 20 followers. And I don't think of them as any different, because their story might touch somebody maybe that the person with a shit ton of following, might not. It's one of those things. You just got to vibe it.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you come up with, okay, I got to ask this. How did you come up with Bunny Hugs? How did you come up with the name?
Well, so, hoodies, the sweaters you pull over your head with the hoods. In Saskatchewan, they're called Bunny Hugs. I don't know why. Yeah. So when I was coming up with the name, I wanted something that was like a wink and a nudge to Saskatchewan, but also kind of sounded cool. I don't know. Yeah. So it was a bit of a gamble, but people seem to like it. People in Saskatchewan think it's kind of funny that I named it that, and people non-Saskatchewan are.
I had that.
They're like you. They're curious. They're like,
I was like, Bunny Hugs, like, How the hell? And then you hear the name Bunny Hugs, and then here you are. I see, this burly man with his big old beard and everything, and I'm like, okay, all right. So I was just curious. I mean, you know, you could have Ashes to Awesome. No, I love you, Chuck. No, it's
Yeah.
no, that's cool. That's cool. I was just curious. I'm always like when I hear some like really interesting names of other fellow, podcast hosts and whatnot. Come up with that.
Well, I regretted it for a little bit because I was like, oh, this is starting to pick up traction. I was like, oh man, I kind of really picked a kind of a goofy name. And I was like,
Yeah,
well,
and I mean,
I got to go with it now. So
maybe it was kind of like the same for us, like I chose the Blacklist podcast, because we're talking about, shit society doesn't want to talk about, like mental health, addiction, like religion, sexual abuse, like just all kinds of shit, and like things that are supposed to be blacklisted that. And I made, we came up with the podcast, but then there's the TV show, The Blacklist, which
oh,
Chuck told me when he started to go listen, he spent an hour listening to The Blacklist, the TV show, The Blacklist. He goes, I sat there and listened to it for an hour before I realized, I was like, when were you coming on? It's like, yeah, and so like, we've been established for a couple of years now. So, like now we get confused with the TV show because NBC has, the same, it all runs with the same thing. That's why mine is spelled with BLAKLAST. And someone asked me, like, you ever thought about changing the name? I'm like, nah, we're too invested by now. I can't change the name. We roll with it. Like, we're already branded as this. Like, I can't change the name one bit.
Yeah. You just got to own it now and
exactly
grab it by the nuts and go.
Exactly. So cool, man. Well, let's hop in. I don't want to, I don't want to take too much of our time tonight. But listen, so kind of like, how was your childhood growing up? Kind of, tell us about that.
Well, I grew up in the town I'm still in Indian Head here. About 2,000 people in the middle of nowhere, Saskatchewan, Canada. And I didn't know much about, the word anxiety and mental health, so I'm 45 years old. So, that stuff was not even talked about. Like, it wasn't even on the radar yet. If it was, not in my family. I'm the third youngest. I got two older brothers, and then I have a younger sister. I got some old school parents. They're, I'll say, traditional in a sense. So anyway, I had such bad anxiety as a kid. In grade 5, I was diagnosed with a stomach ulcer. And that's like a disease that like CEOs of billion-dollar companies get. Like, it's an old man disease. So I was like, I didn't understand it. And my doctors or doctor, I guess, not like I had a whole team of surgeons. My small town doctor was like, here, take Pepto-Bismol, and it wasn't, so they treated the physical part of it, but there was no treating, like, why does this kid worry so much? Why there was nothing about the anxiety part. So whatever, I just kind of kept going on. In high school, I got drunk the first time. I think I was either 12 or 13, grade 7, which was in my town. That's high school, 7th to grade 12. And I thought it was pretty cool. I did have some sexual trauma that night. I kind of grew up with some sexual trauma. I call it sexual trauma and not abuse because it was child on child. And so I don't feel like I was a perpetrator on, I wasn't like, there was no predator or anything like that. I think it was just I was a victim of circumstance, if nothing else. Right. So, but it was still very, it was traumatic. It was like, very inappropriate things that kids shouldn't be doing. And I don't know what the other kid, like, why it happened or if they were abused, or I don't know anything about any of that stuff.
Right.
But anyway, the first night I got drunk, that kind of escalated. And, so that wasn't great, but what was cool was the next day, nobody talked about it. It was like, we laughed and joked about all the other stuff. And, but it was like that was that, like, it was like that didn't even happen. And I thought, whoa, okay, that's pretty cool. And then, I lived I grew up in the 90s in a small town. I had lots of buddies that were like hockey players and jocks and farmers. And so we drank, we drove drunk all the time. We'd, down gravel roads and whatever. And, it became pretty quickly, every weekend, drinking to excess. But living in a small town, you only get a handful of people to be friends with, and they're the same people from like first grade, not grade 1, to all the way through. So once you're kind of labeled something in like kindergarten, you're kind of stuck with that label. And I was quickly the kind of like the class clown kind of party guy. And so anyway, but at the same time, I didn't feel like I quite had a connection with some of my classmates. Like, it was weird. It was like my family grew up in a city. Like, my parents grew up in a city, and then they moved to a small town. So we'd always be in the city visiting relatives and stuff. So I kind of was like, I wasn't a small town kid, but I wasn't a city kid either. I wasn't a hick, but the hicks would think I was a city guy. And so it was weird. I just didn't quite fit in. I did and I didn't. But anyway, after I graduated, I moved to the big city of Regina, Saskatchewan, a city that rhymes with fun, which is
every time I hear that name pronounced, Chantel and everybody, and they're always making fun of it. Yeah. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can only think of one thing.
So anyway, I moved there, and I got a job. Again, I tried marijuana for the first time, and I was sexually assaulted by a manager I worked for, and she was like 50 and I was like 18, and nothing happened to her. There was no Me Too movement or anything like that back then. So basically I just quit because I was so mortified and ashamed, and it was embarrassing. And so it seems like the first time I do the 2 drugs I was addicted to, bad stuff happened, but yet I kept going back to it, or which I can't quite figure out, but whatever. So anyway, I was around that time I started to drink more and experiment more with marijuana. I was the guy that would get really drunk and like start crying and have suicidal ideation and stuff at the party, and was like, "Yo, what's wrong with Todd, man?" And I'm like crying and telling people I want to die and stuff. And I was about 18 years old when that all started happening. And then I started like bouncing from job to job. I tried going to school for a while. I dated a girl for a couple of years. Like, I was in my 20s. I was just being a goober. At one point I was in a band, and we were in a band that lasted for about 5 years, and it was a semi-serious band. Like, we did it full time for a while, and traveled and did a bunch of stuff and recorded, and we were on Much Music, which is like Canadian MTV kind of. And so we're around booze all the time, right? You're around booze and drugs. I wasn't into any of the drug stuff because it was hard. I couldn't play my drums high. So I kind of avoided. So then when our gig was done, I'd always be like, okay, let's do the drugs. And they're like, the other guys like, we did it between second and third set, man. It's like, oh, geez. So
you're on your own now.
Yeah. So I just catch up with booze. But I think I kind of been experiencing or been noticing lately that life has been really polarizing for me. It's like anytime I'm doing something I love doing, including podcasting, it's like I'm also not making very much money. So I get super down on myself for not making money. And like, especially now I have kids and a wife, and I see them working hard and going to school and stuff. And I'm like enjoying myself during the day, but also it doesn't feel like I'm providing very good. So then life sucks. But I've had good paying jobs that suck the soul out of me. So I'm like providing well, but life sucks.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the end of the day too, it's like you're doing something that's making a difference, even though it may not have a monetary aspect to it. you're still like, who knows how many people that your podcast has probably helped over the years that you've done it. So like that,
Yeah.
saving someone's life can be, and I know it does.
And
It's
that's what
not
I
the
mean.
same as a monetary thing, but still.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. I love doing it. Like, I'm so passionate about it. I love doing it. I love hearing the comments, and I love talking to people. Like, all that is so great and so cool. I feel like I'm almost like helping other people more than I am my family, because really what they need right now is like food and gas so they can get to their jobs.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
so anyway, yeah, I have like guilt and shame issues, and it's partly, being a middle-aged man too. It's like I'm not a boomer, but I'm not quite a millennial, so I'm like stuck in this weird generational thing. So yeah. So even then, even when I was playing in the band, it was like I was having the time of my life, but also miserable. So, but anyway, eventually the band breaks up and stuff, and I come home to Regina, and I tell my girlfriend, who's now my wife, like, let's get the hell out of here. Like, I'm done with this city. Let's buy a house. And she's a small town girl, different town, but we end up moving away from the city. And my anxiety and my depression kind of start turning into more anger, which is very common with men, especially men in my family. It's a real pattern, I guess. I would just start waking up like just pissed, and I'd go to work just fucking mad all the time. Like, 'cause I hated my job. I hated where I was. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm supposed to be a rock star, man, and here I am making $7 an hour. Like, what the fuck? And then I would fly off the handle like my dad would. Like, when I was a kid, I'd seem to fuck sakes, this fucking piece of shit, and like throw stuff around. And I hate that. It's so gross. It's like watching a child having a temper tantrum. Like, it's not a good look. It feels it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of kept going through life. I kept bouncing through job to job. I had like 3 or 4 different businesses in my life. It's like we were saying before, like, I'm great at the creating part, but or was it you I was talking to? Oh man, my brain's fried.
You can say it. You can imagine it's me you're talking to.
Sure. Okay. I'm great at the creating stuff and coming up with stuff, but I'm terrible at like the promotion stuff and trying to make the money out of it and trying to, promote it and stuff. And
oh, you were talking to me about that.
Was I? Okay, good.
Yeah, that was the first conversation we had.
And then I see other people as like, wow, man, they're making all types of money, but they're good at hustling that side. They're good at that part of it, right? So I was like, God damn it, why can't I be good at that? So then, more guilt and shame and whatever. But eventually I was drinking and like every night. I was smoking pot every night, binge drinking probably 4 nights a week, but drinking every night, every day, day drinking on weekends and stuff. And, I just thought I didn't see anything wrong with it. It was like, hey, this is just, it's a big culture around here too. It's like, that's just what you do. But I noticed that my mental health was starting to decline to the point that I went and saw a doctor, which I never thought I would do. Because, I can't put a Band-Aid on my brain, right? Like, it's like, I just didn't get it then. So I started on medication, then eventually I started on counseling and therapy. After a while, I did have a real major kind of mental health crisis, and I ended up in the emergency room in my local city, which was incredibly scary. I was like, who goes to the emergency room for their mood? It's like you go there when you have a heart attack, right? Or you've been in a car accident. And I saw like a psychiatrist came in and he talked to me for a bit, and he really poo-pooed it, just kind of told me to go home. And
really,
I was mortified. I was so embarrassed. I was like, fuck's sake. So now like my parents are all worried and everybody's worried about me because I'm like going out of my mind. And then I go to the hospital and they make it seem like I had a hangnail. So I stopped changing my behavior. And in fact, I started amping it up. And over the next year, it's like, I don't know. So I have a hard time. Sometimes I get super personal. Sometimes I don't. Depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah.
So I'll just put it this way. I was a bad husband. I was a bad father. I was a bad son. I was a bad employee. Like I was just doing anything to get me through the day. That gave me instant gratification, instant dopamine hits that were horrible investments long-term for my mental health. And it finally caught up to me. And I had a suicide attempt. I was drunk and high, and police came in, and I started like wrestling with them, and I tried to stab my brother because he was trying to stop me, and I got my hand on a cop's gun, and they made me hurt. I mean,
I bet.
I had places on my body I didn't know could hurt, and they made it hurt.
Really?
I didn't get it out of the holster, but I grabbed the gun. And at this point, I'm like screaming at them to shoot me because I was just like, fuck, I'm done with this. And like suicide by cop was not my plan. It just turned into that. They just showed up and shit went crazy. But so now they take me back to the hospital, to their emergency room in my local city. And it's almost a year to the day that I tried going before. And I thought, well, isn't this fucking nice? No, this is what I had to do to get help. Well, and actually when I went there the first time, the doctor actually said, like, we're not going to admit you. Like, unless you've attempted suicide, odds are we're not going to admit you. And I'm like, well, what if I was successful though? Like, what the fuck?
Right. Exactly.
What the fuck are you talking about? So anyway, so now I'm strapped to a gurney, handcuffed to it as well, with 2 cops on either side of me, strolling me into the fucking psych ward. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is what you have to do to get into the psych ward? Like, holy shit. Just my word wasn't enough. So anyway, I spent 2 weeks there. Turns out it wasn't that helpful. I thought I was going to get help.
Let me ask you this really quick. I don't know how it is in Canada. But do you think that the cops handled your mental health crisis? You think they could have handled it in a better manner? Because I know, like out here, in the U.S., like a lot of law enforcement, they are not trained to deal with mental health crisis. Like, they see someone having mental health, I mean, their first thing they want to do is pull out a gun and shoot them. And that's unfortunately how we end up with a lot of unalived people because of that reason. So how do you how do you think it is for you?
So, I mean, we do have that problem here too, especially in the Indigenous community. So unfortunately it is, I think, partially a racial thing too, whether the cops are racist or it's just circumstantially, whatever reason that happens more often in that community. And I was also lucky because my brother was there. So, I mean, there was lots of witness, and he was already on top of me, holding me down when the cops came. So it was, I mean, semi under control already. But the cop whose gun I grabbed, it was like 2 years later, he was in the news because he was on Facebook and he was saying racist things about Native and Indigenous community, which made my heart stop because I thought, well, okay, if I was Native and that exact same situation happened and they came in, would they have handcuffed me and taken me to the hospital, or would they have handcuffed me and charged me with attempted murder or resisting arrest, blah, 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 and taken me to jail? You? Or shot me, or zap me, or whatever. So, I mean, I did feel lucky. So I think, it does happen here too. And a lot of the cities, so there's city police and then there's RCMP. And RCMP kind of do rural areas all over Canada. And city police do the cities, obviously. And a lot of the cities in my province, they now have, it's called PACT. I can't remember what it stands for. But they have social workers on the force that go to these kind of calls. So, because I mean, how do you de-escalate something when you have dudes in uniforms coming to your house with guns, with lights shining? Like,
well, yeah, and that alone, and somebody that's going through that mental crisis as it is, like them showing up like that, definitely already in a hostile type of environment. You're just asking for it to end in a bad way. So, I don't know. I think personally, we could have better training when it comes to law enforcement and mental health crisis calls, because there's some cops that they got it, they understand it, they know, but then you have a lot of the other ones are ones that are rookies or just out of, just whatnot. And they've never seen somebody have a mental breakdown. And, they're just like, what the hell? So I'm glad that I will say this. I'm very glad that they handled it the way they handled it with you, and that they handcuffed you and took you to the hospital instead of something else, because again, like you said, that could have ended up very bad either way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never even considered that until I saw the guy in the news and saw what he put and all this stuff. And I was like, holy shit.
Right. So you
for
spent
people
2
that
weeks
say-
in there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I spent 2 weeks in there. Twice AA came to my room and gave me a pamphlet, and twice I was like, I'm not an alcoholic. What the fuck are you doing here? Like, I'm clearly crazy and depressed. I don't have an issue. So anyway, I left the hospital, and I kind of opened up to my family and everybody about some of the, I'd say, non-moral things I was doing in my life that was giving me instant gratification. So, I lost a lot of trust for my family and my wife and everybody. So I kind of worked on that for a couple of years, but I mean, I was still miserable. Like, I was still, like, nothing really changed. I tried drinking a little less. I tried smoking less weed, but I still was doing it. And eventually, like a couple of years later, there was, oh man, what time is it? I could talk for like another 2 hours about myself, so I'm trying to pick and choose.
Yeah, no, that
the
like I
parts
said,
that
that's
are
fine.
important.
Normally I'm like, let's run it. But tonight, I try to keep it with the way that she's feeling and whatnot. I try to keep it on a little. But
Well,
listen,
me
man,
too.
and this doesn't mean that we can't come on a second time and we can pick up somewhere else. So you're good, man. Just
Okay.
whatever like I said, whatever the vibe that you feel is, roll with.
Okay. I'll try to do it quickly. So basically, there was a bunch of jobs being cut at the hospital, and it pissed me off because I was in the hospital and I saw like when I say jobs cut in the hospital was psych nurses. So there were people on the psych ward. So I wrote this whole letter and I opened up about my mental health journey and stuff, and I put it on Facebook, and next thing I know, it's like blowing up, and like all these news media outlets all over the place are coming out to interview me to talk about my suicide attempt and my time I went to the hospital, and they basically said go home and all this stuff. So that was kind of a turning point in my journey, in the way that started by advocacy work. I felt like, okay, for whatever reason, people are listening to me. I've gotten the attention of people, so I have to keep rolling with this. But meanwhile, I'm still drinking and getting high, and I'm fucking still suicidal and shit. Like, I was in no mind space to be advocating for something.
So you're like hypocritical, pretty much.
Kind of. It was more like it was just added pressure. Like, I was already feeling like shit. Right. Now there's this pressure I'm putting on myself, and I felt like, I have to do this for people because they're listening to me now and stuff. And within a month, I'm like in my local hospital in my small town now, detoxing and having, just came from it wasn't a suicide attempt, but I woke my wife up in the middle of the night telling her I'm going to hurt myself. So, and I mean, I was I was so drunk and so high. Yeah, I thought I would drink all the booze in the house and then tell her the next morning, like, hey, there's no booze in the house. Like, let's keep it this way. Cause I tried quitting so many times. But instead I got so drunk from drinking all the fucking booze in the house that I got suicidal again. And so anyway, I spent a couple of weeks in my local hospital here detoxing, and my doctor, made me go. He said, hey, I want you to go to treatment. I want you to see a counselor again. I want you to start going to AA meetings and all this stuff. And it took a bit of convincing, but I did it. And I was self-employed at that time. I basically abandoned my business for like 3 months while I was waiting to get into treatment. And then when I went to treatment, Pine Lodge Addiction Treatment Center, I was scared shitless. I was a man. I felt like a little kid again. And I was 30. Let's see, I'm 7 years sober. 30 something. 37. No, 38. Yeah. 39. I was 39. And yeah, I felt like I was like a little boy. Like I was so scared. I was like, holy shit, talk about anxiety. And it was the hardest. It was the most terrible, awful, fucking amazing, rewarding month of my life. Like it was like, talk about polarizing. Like I was talking about how life's polarizing lately. It's just like same thing. It was just like boot camp challenge. It was fucking amazing and awful and scary and amazing. I can't explain it any other way.
Yeah.
I learned so much about myself, and I wish I don't even think people need. I wish everyone could go to a place like that for 28 days, whether you have addiction or not, because you're going to learn something about yourself, and you're going to be humbled, and you're just going to be a better person. You're going to learn life skills. Like that's really what it was, and that was really kickstarted my healing journey. So going to the hospital and all this other shit didn't really do much. It was really getting sober that really started my healing journey and my mental health journey.
I mean, were you pretty nervous to get sober?
Pardon me?
Were you pretty nervous to get sober?
Oh, fuck yeah. I was,
just
God.
like,
the thought of it just scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I was there for 28 days, and even at the end of the first week, I was like, I'll slow down.
Yeah.
Like, I'll learn how to control it better. Right. And then, it wasn't too long after that. I was like, oh shit, no. Okay. I'm an idiot. This
ain't going to work.
Yeah. And I don't get me wrong. I do believe there's harm reduction and there's no one size fits all when it comes to recovery. But
yeah,
for me, I know it'd be a slippery slope if I loved weed. Oh, fuck, did I love it. Oh,
yeah.
And and a lot of people were like, well, you're still going to smoke weed, right? I was like, no, I can't. Like if I were to smoke a joint within 2-3 months, I'd be drinking again too. Like it's just, okay, it's full on.
And then that's your personal, that's your personal recovery journey. There's plenty of people that are sober that are off the hard shit, and they smoke weed, and listen, I support
Cali
that 100%. Yeah, exactly. But sure, if you personally don't feel that, I've heard that before too. They're like, listen, I support you being Cali sober, but I cannot take a hit because I'm going to be slamming a needle in my arm, So exactly. I get that. And that's the thing that we try to push on these people. Today's recovery age is that there's more than one way to recover. And just because it doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's going to work for someone else or vice versa.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, even like 12-step groups might not work for everyone. It worked for me. I haven't been to a meeting in years, like COVID hit and stuff, and I'm doing fine. I'm fine. But again, I'm still doing other things to be proactive and stuff, but I'm not going to meetings. Some people have to go to fucking 5 meetings a week for 20 years, whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Whatever helps you, whatever works for you. But yeah, so then out of treatment, it was weird. It was just like they said, it was like, if you just go with the flow and fucking chill out, life happens to you and you just go with it. And it was like, I got a decent job and like things were like falling into place. I started saving money. We went on a big trip with my family because I had saved enough money. Like I've never had money before. I was like, and then the treatment center said, hey, we want you to come and talk once a month to the clients. So I started doing that. I did that for a year. Then they said, why don't you come join us, be on staff? So then I quit my other job. I started making a lot less money. There's not a lot of rich people in recovery, or in Canada anyway. So anyway, I went on staff and things were going good and I was enjoying that. And then COVID hit and fuck, man, my anxiety went through the roof again. My depression, since I quit drinking, my depression's been pretty much under wraps. I haven't spent like days in bed and, I still have suicidal thoughts from now and then. That's just a normal thing for me. But they're not, they're not like they were. Like I observe my thoughts and I'll be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I had that thought. It's not like, oh my God, I have to listen to this thought. Right. But anyway, my anxiety went through the roof. I was starting to listen a little bit to the suicidal thoughts again because I was just like so tired of having anxiety and stuff. And we had a bit of a family event and stuff, and I had like cousins and some relatives, and they were talking about their ADHD meds and stuff. And I was like, "You guys have ADHD?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, don't you?" I was like, "I don't know, do I?" So I started looking into ADHD, and it took about a year to get the assessment and stuff. But fucking, I have ADHD, and I started looking into it. I'm like, of course I do. Like, I
Right.
didn't know anything about it. It was like, well, that explains having anxiety when you're like in grade 5 to the point that you have fucking stomach ulcers and having depressive thoughts and even addiction and the weed smoking, all this stuff like just
Yeah.
made sense. I'm almost so convinced that I do have like some kind of bit of an anxiety disorder on top of it, but whatever. So now I'm like, so I've been taking meds. When I do see a counselor, it's through the lens of ADHD, so it's not just talk therapy or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's been very helpful. And then this summer, again, I was quitting another job, a different job. I've had a lot of fucking jobs, man.
Listen, I've been there. I've been there with you. I think because my addiction too, like I probably couldn't I probably like once a year I would change jobs. I would job hop, and then
Exactly.
finally I got to a point after I got sober, that I was like, okay, cool. Oh, I've been at this job for 3 years. Okay, like wow, that's the longest I've ever been at a job. So
Well, even getting sober, I thought that pattern would break, but no, I'm still
yeah.
goofy. But again,
Listen, man, it's life.
explains the ADHD explains that too. So
Yeah.
but anyway, this summer was again, I'm like, fuck's sake. So I quit my job again. And I wasn't 100% still. And so I tried some EMDR therapy, which is I can't remember what it stands for, eye movement something.
Yeah, it's like I know the gist of it, but I can't tell you the exact verbiage either.
Yeah. So anyway, my point is like, so I've been sober for 7 years. I started meds like 15 years ago, and it's just slowly, it never stops. Like there's always something you could be working on. Layers get peeled back.
Yeah.
That sexual trauma stuff I was talking about, like I've just started dealing with that like within the last year. And I think it's because I've been healing. I wasn't ready to deal with that stuff. Like my brain didn't even register it until I healed enough that I was like, okay, I think my brain can now deal with this shit. So, and I dealt with that with the EMDR and stuff. So yeah, there's always, next year I could have another story, a chapter to add that now I'm doing Reiki or some other goddamn something because of something else that came up. And, it's just never ending. And that's not a bad thing. Like I'm leveling up every time. Right. So,
I mean, that's life. It's all about progression. And the more that we dive deep down into, therapy and different things like that, like the more we reveal about ourselves. And I think that's life in general. I think life is it's a constant journey. You're constantly learning something. I don't think, you get to do it all and become middle-aged and all right, well, I guess I know, I learned it all. So I think we're all of us are going to be learning things every single year until the day that we die. And that's just the journey of life. As long as we keep it on the, we're doing good things, learning good things about ourselves, peeling back the good layers that we need to get, just that, then we're on the right path.
Mm-hmm. And for me, it all started really when I got sober. Like I was on meds and seeing therapist before, but I was also not doing any of the work the therapist told me to do.
Right.
I was on meds, but I was also drinking and smoking every fucking day. And like, so I like to think I was proactive, but I really wasn't until I got sober and until I went to treatment and really took care of that shit. Cause I mean, I don't think I would have leveled up or the layers would have peeled off until I took care of that.
How did you deal with so it sounds like you've been with your wife for a long time. So she's been with you since during your addiction and all that good and all that stuff. So how does she handle all of that? Like the whole from when you were in that to your transition I mean, just supportive, like how was that?
Man, it started when we first started dating, she was very supportive. She's like very different than me. She's like the introvert, very quiet girl who goes to work and comes home and reads a book and falls asleep. And, she's not the loud person at the party like me. So she's just a very empathetic, beautiful soul. And when the shit really hit the fan, she could have just said like, fuck this guy and gone. She could have done anything.
Yeah.
But instead she's like, okay, if we're going to make this work, you have to go to counseling and therapy and like do the fucking work. And she recognized that like she had shit she had to deal with from her childhood and trauma and shit. She's like, I can't make us work either until I figure out some shit. So then she went and saw a counselor, and then we saw one together. And this is all going on at the same time. So it was like Mondays we'd see our own therapist. Wednesdays we'd have one group session, and then we'd work throughout the week on ourselves and as a couple. And we just made it happen. We just there wasn't at one point where both of us fell out of love. So at one point, one of us was always in love with the other one throughout the whole journey. So it was like we were always being supported.
Right.
There's been lots of times where we're in love together at the same time, but there's, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yep. No, I get it.
Yeah. Okay. And so, yeah, we really going through that shit time. We really grew up together. I mean, not as, we weren't little kids growing up together, but we grew up, we healed individually and together, and really went from like being just a kid to a self-aware, adjusted adult.
Yeah.
And she's very emotionally intelligent, I'll say, and very supportive. And yeah,
that's good. That's good that you have somebody like that. And that because like you said, man, she could have, screw you, I'm hitting the high road.
Well, so when the second time when I went to the hospital, when I went and detoxed, she kind of did. It was almost an ultimatum. It was kind of like, and it wasn't like, fuck you, I'm done with you. It was more like, I can't watch you do this anymore.
Yeah. Like, get your shit straight or something.
Yeah. Cause like she went and worked on herself and she was on a good recovery. I did a bit, but it was apparently wasn't enough.
Yeah.
And so she was like, I can't watch you do this to yourself anymore. I can't have you waking me up in the middle of the night telling me you're going to kill yourself anymore. It's killing me.
Oh yeah. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I can only imagine like how traumatic that would be to like, next thing you know, like you're getting woke up out of your sleep by your partner saying, I want to kill myself. Like that's, that you can only imagine what that person's going to go through mentally. Because like wondering, are you going to do it? Are you not going to do it? Like, how serious are you?
Well, I say all the time, it's like, I think our families had the harder job, like, cause they're just watching, like they're being as supportive as they can be without having you be, codependent or whatever on them. And like how helpless and useless would you feel just watching a loved one going through addiction and stuff and being like, fuck sakes, like you just want to shake them and slap them around, like, fuck, snap out of it, right? And they can't do that. So yeah, I can only imagine the frustration. And yeah, so I mean both sides, it's hard, but being on this side, I look at that side now and I'm like, how the fuck did she not just fucking leave? I don't know if I would have been able to stay.
You got to keep her, bro. You got to keep her.
Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I kind of have to because she's the only one that makes money right now.
Oh man. Listen, I was married almost 13 years. I got 3 kids. By the same woman. Of course, we got divorced. And we're on very good terms. But like my Brianna and I, we've been together a year and a half, and I tell you, like, even in my recovery, I've done some fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And this woman stands by my side and she loves me, you know. And that's the crazy thing. People think that you get sober and your life is better. You're like, really? Really? No, like, okay, I've quit doing drugs, but you know, I'm still a piece of shit person at times, you know, and that's something that I'm working on personally. And I go to therapy and different things like that too. So it's just, you know, but that's the thing, you know, we come on here and people see us on these platforms and this and that. And they're like, oh, but you're sober. Like, you should have your life together. Like, where the fuck you get that from? Like, I am
no one has their life together.
I'm the furthest person from that. So, you know, with being said, like, I've done some fucked up shit, and Brianna has stayed by my side, you know, and I love her to death for that. So it's like, you got to keep yours, I got to keep her.
They won't stay there forever though if we keep doing fucked up shit,
right? So at what point? Did you start wanting to make a podcast and start sharing stories and whatnot?
Right. Yeah, it was during COVID. So actually, the night that I quit drinking, I shouldn't say I quit drinking, was the night that I stopped drinking. I actually came in from my garage because there was no more parties or anything. I was just drinking alone in my garage, smoking pot till I fucking passed out. I came in. This is when I woke up my wife and was like, I'm going to hurt myself. And I jotted something down on my computer. I'm so fucking drunk, I don't remember what I wrote. When I came back from detoxing, I look on my computer and it's like a kid's book. It's my kids watching me disintegrate a little bit. So I actually, took me a few more years, but during COVID, I finished it. It's my kid's book. Sometimes Daddy Cries. And It's about a kid watching his dad go through depression and stuff. And then, also in COVID. So I did that. And I was like, well, fuck, you know, I've been kicking around the idea of podcasts, and I was listening to lots of different podcasts, and I was like, used to playing bands and stuff. So I was like, I got all the gear. I've been doing enough advocating. I know enough people I could talk to. So I just kind of started recording conversations and no idea what I was doing. And I thought maybe I'll do 10 episodes and just make it like a series. And I just fucking loved it so much that, you know, it'll be 3 years this spring, and I've got 130 some episodes, and yeah. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it started. And for someone that goes headfirst into any hobby I've ever had and then drops it like it's hot about a year later, I'm pretty proud. I've stuck with this. It's like, I think I found what I really love doing, and I hope I can help my wife out financially a little better now soon. So yeah.
No, that's good, man. That's really good that, you know, you found something that, you know, contribute to society, you know.
Yeah.
Tell me more about the book.
Sure.
What was the end? Okay, so kind of what was the inspiration to get started on that?
I don't really remember. I think I was just sitting there drunk and high one night, feeling sorry for myself, and I was like, I was worried that through all this, I was now causing trauma for my kids. So now I'm like passing this trauma down. It's like, fuck. And like, we didn't have conversations when they were little about, you know, daddy's sick and, you know, this is what mental health looks like and all this stuff. So I was like, I wonder what a kid's book would look like for, you know, like to start that conversation, at least for kids and their parents and whatever. And, yeah, I don't even remember really typing it out because I was so fucking hammered and suicidal. Yeah. It was the first draft. I mean, it changed drastically from the first draft, but yeah. And then, so yeah, it's like a kid watching his dad go through depression and the mom explaining it to the kid that, you know, it's like when you have a tummy ache and you need rest, sometimes daddy needs rest, or, he even goes to the hospital and it's like, you know, remember when you had to come here because of you hurt your arm or whatever it was. And same thing. It's, you know, so it's always referring back to a physical ailment so that, you know, a kid can process that and be like, oh yeah, okay, my brain and my moods and my feelings are just as, you know, it's not concrete, but it's just as real as breaking a finger or having a stomach ache. And then, so yeah. And then, it also highlights good times when daddy's feeling good. We do all types of really cool stuff. We play video games, we walk the dog and stuff. But yeah. And so, yeah, there's been, parents and social workers and stuff, they really like the book. So that's good. But again, I'm bad at the PR stuff. So I was like, I think I broke even with it, and I kind of forgot I have it. So
how did the like getting it published and all that, was it self-published, or did you
it's self-published. Yeah. I actually I talked to some publishers, and they didn't, they're like, oh, it's a little too this and it's a little too that and it's too dark. And I had a friend, artist friend, yeah, exactly. And I had a friend that did did the illustrations. They're like, oh, these pictures are too sad looking. And they're like, it should be fluffier. Kids like soft. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I was like, fuck this. And I just self-published it. And I've not had a bad feedback about it. And in fact, people think it's beautiful. Like the artist is amazing. The illustrations are beautiful. It was kind of hard walking that fine line of like, okay, how do I keep it a kid's book without making it sound too grim and dark, but also realistic? And I think I walked that fine line so that,
How many copies do you think you've sold?
I have no fucking idea.
Hey, it's all good. It's all good.
I don't know.
That's cool though, because not everybody
Between 100
can say.
500.
Listen, not everybody can say that they've published a book. So,
no, yeah.
Even if it's a children's book, I don't give a fuck. Like that's an accomplishment, and it's hitting on real stuff. Like it's pretty sad that these publishing companies are like, well, let's do this and let's do that. And it's like, this is real life. Like, that there are actual real fucking children that feel this way. Like,
or see their parents go through it.
Exactly. Like, really. So the fact that, that's like, it's almost like, it's like you almost need to have like a publishing company that literally handles like those types of content.
Yeah. And I get it. I was like, I was totally expecting that feedback. And when I got it, I was like, fuck this.
Right.
The thing about kids' book though, they're freaking expensive to print. So I never have, this is like the only copy I have. So now I'm like, just go to Amazon because I don't.
Yeah. I was going to say, if somebody wants to read it, where do they go?
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Sometimes Daddy Cries. Well, it's on a few different places online, but Amazon's the easiest. But yeah, for me to have like 100 copies, I'd have to like shell out like $3,000, and it's like I don't have $3,000, and then you're sitting on them too. So I just tell people Amazon. Yeah, so
there you go.
So yeah, and then then I've got the second episode a week of the podcast coming out. So it's still under the umbrella of Sometimes Daddy Cries. No, fuck, that's my book. Funny Hugs and Mental Health.
There's your ADHD going.
This one's co-hosted with a guy named Nick Thompson out of Chicago. He was on Love is Blind season 2. I don't know if you watched.
I've heard of it. Of it. I haven't watched it, but I've heard the show.
Yeah, it's a goofy dating reality show. But
how did you get in contact with him?
Honestly, to this day, I'm like, how the fuck am I friends with this guy? How the fuck did that happen? But he's a mental health advocate, and it started like he came off the show, and he was never really big into reality TV, but he's like the people on those shows are basically abused. Like I was like in prison all fucking day. Like he hated it. It was like it was hell. And then he comes out, and then it gets aired, and like people are like calling him a fucking whatever on the street, and he's just like, what the fuck did I do? Like I'd never in a million years would go on this goddamn show if I knew it was gonna fuck up my life. He lost his job. No one will hire him because like, well, you're on the show and people know you from there, and we just don't want that look. And he's like, for fuck's sakes, like, God damn it. So anyway, then he started this foundation called You Can, like the letter U Can. Mm-hmm. And it's for people that have been on TV and have gotten fucked over by the production companies. And so they help with like lawyer fees or mental health fees or whatever. So I interviewed him for my podcast. And then he has a podcast called Eyes Wide Shut. or sorry, Eyes Wide Open.
ADHD, knock knock.
We just became buddies, and we're like, we've been thinking about doing a second episode a week anyway, so we're like, well, let's do one together. So we call that one Mental Health Headline Hot Takes. So we just take articles in the news about mental health and just jibber jab for about half an hour, and
there's a lot of those. There's a lot of those.
Oh yeah, I just type mental health news in Google, and it pages upon pages every day, every week.
Yeah, dude, you have to link me with that guy. I definitely would love to have him on for sure.
Sure, yeah. He does other people's podcasts all the time.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk more outside of this.
But
so
again,
you guys,
he's hard to. It's like every 3 weeks we talk for an hour.
Yeah,
so
like you were telling me. Yeah. Maybe it's good that we schedule 2 months out.
Well, exactly.
So, right. Hey, listen, we got somebody that like in December we scheduled them for May, just because and this David Sheets Jr. from Deadliest Catch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so he's a big mental health advocate, and he's I saw him on Dan's podcast, and then he was just like, yeah, I'm doing a lot of traveling, blah blah blah. He goes, he's like, I mean, really, my it's really like early spring is when my stuff opens up, and I get booked. I was like, well, listen, why don't we lock you in right now, so you're in. So yeah, so I get it. Sometimes you got to do that. So yeah, we got people already for summer that are booked out just because their first half of the year is completely booked. But at least, then when the time comes, though, because we book up so fast, they can't be like, well, sorry, we don't have any availability anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, all right. So you drop how many, so how often do you drop, originally?
So it's Thursdays and Saturdays now. So Thursdays is the co-hosted one. Saturdays is I'm talking to a guest, kind of like this.
Yeah. Like this. Yeah. Where can they follow you at?
Well, I just started YouTube about a month ago. So Bunny Hugs and Mental Health on YouTube, and Bunny Hugs Mental Health on Apple and Spotify and all the other places you can find all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely we'll put the links in the description of the episode and whatnot. And yeah, man, we're gonna have you back on again, definitely, because I do want to dive deep into some other stuff. But sure. It's cool, just to be able to kind of, just have you on and just hear the gist of everything. Everyone's story is awesome, and I like to I love to just talk to people and just see where they came from. It's crazy because it's like, even though like we do this and we sit down every week with people, and it's like the overview was kind of the same. You grow up in traumatic you shitty childhood, leads you into depression, whether it's addiction, mental health, whatnot. And then, you have your deep in the shit, and you come back, and it's like, we know all that, but everybody's, the way their story is just different. And like, that is what I love to hear. Is just how everybody's, even though the overview is the same, everyone's story and it's just
the details are different.
The details, and it's cool. It's really, really cool. I think it's really awesome that we're able to do this.
Yeah,
and then the fact that we're able to have other podcasters. Like I tell you, when I started this, I didn't think that half of my guests were going to be other podcasts, hosts and stuff like that. So, and it's really cool though, because it's like, all right, cool. I'm having people come on mine, and I'm going on theirs and sharing, and so. It's really cool because our recovery podcast community is pretty tight knit, honestly.
It is. I'm not quite in. I kind of straddle that line of mental health and the recovery. So it's like I kind of. No one's. Yeah.
But you're still in it though. Like you're still,
for sure.
You're
like,
you're
I know
still
Dan and I want to call him Chris, but I know Chuck.
Right.
Yeah, Chuck. And,
even though his name's Chris,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know all those guys, and then also know some of the mental health people, and now I'm getting hard into ADHD podcasters too and stuff, and so they say
it's really cool.
They say get your podcasts to succeed, you really have to narrow it down. It's like, you can't just talk about anxiety. You have to talk about, and I'm like, fuck that. I want to talk to anybody and everybody. So,
and that's why I think we do this and not have to worry. Like, fuck it, maybe we would perform better if we narrowed it down to this little thing. But I'm like, nah, fuck it. Like this is what we talk about. So if that means, that we talk to anybody and everybody that's on this spectrum and we have a half-ass performing show, I don't care.
Exactly.
I would rather have that because somebody can learn from it and get some help than gal deep down into something that somebody probably has no fucking, that they don't have that specific issue, so.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not about followers for me. It's just about how many people we can touch and help.
Exactly. I mean, I'll never be Joe Rogan, so why try to be?
I wish we could, get that $100 million Spotify, contract and stuff, man. But
yeah. If I could just make a car payment, I'm happy.
Like I said, if I could do this full time, man, as long as I can pay my bills at the end of the day and just be comfortable, I'm okay. I don't need thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, and I don't need none of that shit. Just give enough just to pay my shit, and be good, and I'm good.
Yeah.
So if I can make that happen, then I'd be in heaven. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've said that in the past though, and then it's like I get bored, and it's like I have to create a crisis and do something different. But no.
No,
I think I'd be happy.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're when you do something you absolutely love, you're happy about it.
Absolutely,
that's just the way it is. So, you want to say anything to the audience before we wrap up?
Just thanks for having me, and keep listening to this guy here. He's got good guests, and he's wise. He knows his shit, and if I can recover, anybody can recover, man. And it's true.
I agree. Yeah. I agree. If I can do it, if Todd can do it, you definitely can do it.
You got to do the work.
Yeah, it doesn't fall in your lap. You got to do the work. But go check out Bunny Hugs and go give them a follow and support. Until next time, we signing off.